When I first moved to the North Country, now 23 years ago, I was an avid hiker who knew nothing about the Adirondacks. So the Adirondack Explorer magazine's write-ups of hikes were like gold to me. But what really caught my eye in those write-ups were the maps. A perfect balance between all the info you need to get to the hike and know what's going along and know where to go, yet spare enough to read really easily. And I always wondered, who's the genius behind these incredible maps? A profile of mapmaker Nancy Bernstein on today's Story of the Day.
Support for Story of the Day comes from Essex County Arts Council, promoting arts and culture through advocacy and grants to artists and organizations. More at essexcountyarts.org.
Hey, I'm David Sommerstein. It's Friday, April 7th. First up, the Akwesasne Mohawk police now believe that the 30-year-old Akwesasne man who went missing last week is connected to the 8 victims whose bodies were recently found in the St. Lawrence River. The man, Casey Oakes, was last seen boarding a boat last Wednesday. He was reported missing the following day. A search for Oakes was started, during which police found the 8 bodies. 6 of the deceased were adults, 2 were children. They're believed to have been trying to cross the river to enter the U.S. illegally. A statement on the Akwesasne Mohawk Police Facebook page says they've suspended their organized search for Oakes, but they're still looking for him as part of their daily operations as the investigation into the 8 deaths continues. If you've ever looked through the Adirondack Explorer magazine, chances are you've seen artwork by Nancy Bernstein. She's been drawing maps for the magazine for 30 years, helping tell stories about hikes, paddles, and other outdoor adventures in the Adirondacks. Bernstein's maps are simple looking, but have all the information you need to orient yourself in the park. Emily Russell brings us the story behind the artist.
Nancy Bernstein is like the perfect kind of Adirondack famous.
A lot of people don't know, who I am, which is fine, but they've seen my maps. And when they do meet me and they're like, oh, you're the one that did that?
Bernstein is in her late 50s, and she's clearly super athletic. Right now, she's wearing blue frame glasses that match her earrings. Bernstein's been drawing maps for the Adirondack Explorer for half her life, sometimes up to 10 maps per issue. I ask her how many she thinks she's drawn over the decades.
Like hundreds? I think more than that. There's a lot of maps, Emily.
All right, so let's focus on the few she's working on right now. The first is for another client, historic Saranac Lake. It's pretty detailed and mostly done. The goal is to show all the hamlets around the village.
Take my tracing paper, I just line it up, where I want it, what I want to catch.
In this case, she's adding the old railroad track. She lays her tracing paper over an official map of the Adirondacks.
Line it up, and then I carefully, and this is where you need good vision. I have all kinds of glasses these days to be able to capture all this, but, then you're just drawing with pencil on my tracing paper.
She slowly traces all the slight curves of the railroad track. Then it's time to imprint that onto her hand-drawn map. To do that, she uses another kind of special paper.
This is a transfer paper. It's kind of like carbon paper, if you remember that from moons ago. When you press on one side, it leaves ink on the other.
So she slides that slate gray transfer paper between her map and the tracing paper, which sits on top. Once all of the map details are transferred over, it's ready for the final touches.
I use these fine nibbed pens, micron pens, and I use watercolors, and sometimes I add little illustrations to my maps.
She draws tiny little fire towers and lean-tos. Mostly, though, Bernstein's maps are pretty simple, clean-looking. Rivers and streams are in blue, text is in black. They're not super detailed, but they're distinct. And they reflect the kind of art Bernstein has always felt most comfortable with.
I never saw myself as a fine artist because I didn't think I had that creative sense to create something totally new.
As a kid, Bernstein was drawn more towards what was real, what was right in front of her, plants and animals. She was also drawn to science. So she combined the two and started to pursue natural science illustration.
I was early on in that when I got asked to do this map drawing for the Adirondack Explorer. Dick Beamish asked me, and to do the prototype, and it kind of just started me down that path.
Beamish is the founder of the Adirondack Explorer. Bernstein, at the time, was also going down another path, home construction, starting with her own. When she moved to the Adirondacks from the Hudson Valley in her 20s, she bought land with some friends in Vermontville, about 10 miles north of Saranac Lake.
I had no idea if I was how long I'd stay. I was just going to build something to see if I could do it, and then I did okay. It's a nice house.
Bernstein's being humble. It's beautiful, especially the timber frame addition. While she drew maps and illustrations on the side, Bernstein worked in timber frame home construction for 20 years. Her home has sleek wooden lines, lots of light, windows that frame the Adirondacks. What are we looking at?
That's a moose with the slide, and Mackenzie to the right with a little slide on it. I always want to go find that little slide.
Yeah. Bernstein is an avid outdoors woman. When she's not drawing or working her day job, now at the Adirondack North Country Association, chances are Bernstein's in the mountains.
I'm a skier, a hiker, a paddler. I'll jump on my bike. I'll do anything to be outside, depending on what the weather and the ground conditions are good for. I'm all in.
All that time outside ends up going into her art. She's working on a map now for the Adirondack Explorer. It'll be part of a story about a hike some friends took from Long Lake down along the Northville Placid Trail.
I hiked the Northville Placid Trail a couple of years ago, so I kind of pictured where I was along the map as I'm drawing and remembering swimming in Tyrrell Pond and camping in a certain spot. So I do like to kind of be in the place where I am.
Over her 30-year career, Bernstein has drawn maps not just for the Explorer, but also for the Adirondack Council, for the 90-miler canoe race, for Hornbeck boats. She also does personal commissions.
I've drawn maps for people's weddings, to help the people find where to go. And it's kind of fun where things have ended up, and it's nice to be this not high-profile person that kind of has little imprints all over the place.
So now when you see one of those beautiful hand-drawn maps in the Adirondack Explorer, you'll know a bit more about the artist behind it. Emily Russell, North Country Public Radio, Vermontville.
Really terrific photos of Nancy Bernstein all through her life in the Adirondacks, including at the desk where she makes her maps. You can find those great photos at ncpr.org. Big red siren emoji. This is it. The last few hours of our spring fundraiser. We all need to pitch in to keep regional news strong, like this profile of Nancy Bernstein, or breaking news, or deep dives our reporters do about housing or police reform, or holding politicians accountable. You make local journalism possible by helping to pay for it. Give right now at ncpr.org/give. It doesn't matter how much. Today's the last day. Give any amount, even $5 or $10, to show that local journalism matters to you. Go to ncpr.org/give right now. Thank you so much. Music today by I Am Snow Angel and Caitlin Scholl. And guess what? They're both from Lake Placid. I'm David Summerstein, North Country Public Radio.